everyone. You're listening to Deeper Grooves, Musicians on Music, hosted by Cliff Beach and sponsored by California Soul Music record label. Today I have my good friend Peter Daly on to talk about his album, The Ninth Street Sessions, as well as his new album that's coming out in 2021. Very, very excited to have him on as a special guest. Please help me welcome Peter Daly.
Hello, Peter.
Hello,
how
hello.
are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Good to be able to catch up.
I know it's been a while. It's been a hot minute, as they say, as these young kids say these days.
Oh my goodness, how do we even keep up with the lingo and what the kids are saying now?
Plastic surgery. That's just good. I go into the plastic surgery office and I tell them I want to look like Paul McCartney looks, but at 78. Not young Paul. I want the plastic surgery he's got right now. Make me look like old Paul McCartney.
Oh
right.
Man, the latest and the greatest. Obviously that is. Yeah, I've always had a small nose. I thought, why don't I just go bigger? Why don't I actually learn what it's like to breathe normally?
I thought about just not even having them take my nose off completely. Just try something new.
Always excited to try something new. What I love about doing the new podcast, and thank you for being on now that we're in season 2 now, the exciting thing is that even if I'm talking with someone who I've known a long time and, know on different levels, you never really know, like, someone you know as well. Well, let's just say I don't really research my friends to that level. So it's interesting just to kind of get to learn more about you and be able to speak on a different type of level than we normally do.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's just get right into it then. So I've been listening to your Ninth Street Sessions. I think you actually gave me that CD years ago.
I probably did. Yeah.
Yeah, floating around my car, and you've done so many things since then. But I'm excited that you're re-releasing this new, this old music, but new music, for people that haven't heard it, as you prepare to release next year's album. And I see that on that album you collaborated with Pigeon John, who you've obviously done a ton of work with. So what were you thinking when you were creating that album?
It's called the Ninth Street Sessions, and I recorded that in Santa Monica at a studio that was on actually 9th Street. So hence the Ninth Street Sessions. And that whole little EP of songs, I'd written the song Bright Lights because I had some friends that were actors, and they were trying to, make things happen as people in this business do. So I wrote that song, and that kind of all the other songs kind of fell into place after that. Bright Lights was kind of like the first one, and then Not Gonna Do It Again and Love Revival. And I find, like, and I'm sure you can relate to this being an artist as well, sometimes when you're writing, like, songs will kind of feel like they're a family, like they fit together, and you're like, okay, these songs go together, like this is definitely an album. And then sometimes I'll write, and it will be, I'll write 20, 30 songs, not thinking as an album. And then I'll go back and listen, and I'll be like, okay, these songs, track 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 14, 18, those songs feel like a family. After the fact, sometimes songs fit together, in the process. But with the Ninth Street Sessions, all that to say, I led you on a little story there. All that to say, the Ninth Street Sessions, they all kind of just fell together like this. These all were written and felt like, okay, these should go together. So, yeah, that's basically that. I recorded that album in Dallas. Well, part of it in Dallas, and then in Santa Monica at the Ninth Street Sessions. Wrote and did the original demos I did in Dallas, and then took the finished ideas and fleshed them out and did them in Santa Monica, the beautiful Santa Monica, California.
Nice. And that's interesting that you did it both in Dallas and LA, because you're originally from LA, but you grew up and spent a lot of time in Texas. Your dad was a minister and a gospel singer, and you used to perform with him as a child. I wish the listening audience could see you in that old T-shirt or sweatshirt that I saw you in.
That's for your eyes only, Brother Cliff.
We don't all have our young selves plastered on a 1980s sweatshirt that we can debut on the ground at any time. But...
Well, my mother has the 8x10s, so she can keep the 8x10s of me as a child performer locked up. And actually, let me just not correct you, but rearrange the story there. I'm actually from Dallas, but have lived in LA for about 20 years. So I grew up in Dallas, and then we moved to Southern California in 2000.
Okay, yeah. You just seem so part of LA. I just assumed it was kind of a boomerang, but that makes sense. So tell us more about like your dad and growing up and seeing him sing and perform, and then being a child performer on the revival circuit, I guess they would call it. How did that shape your musical journey?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, my father, he was a minister, like you said, and an evangelist, and I grew up on a tour bus. I was homeschooled all throughout the 80s. And so when I got to kind of know what was going on in the early 90s, like, growing up a bit, I would I remember spending Halloweens on the road in a tour bus. And I remember one Halloween we were at a campground for like a KOA campground or whatever in Detroit. And because my dad had some revivals and some services. And I remember dressing up as Spider-Man and going from RV to RV trick-or-treating. So that was kind of my adolescent life growing up on the tour bus. But yeah, growing up, my father did gospel music. He was in a gospel group that won a Dove Award back, which is like the gospel equivalent of a Grammy, back like in the 70s, and they were called the Galileans. And yeah.
Exciting. A Dove Award is a big deal.
Yeah, that was their kind of claim to fame, and
I call them the Crammies, the Christmas
Crammies, yeah, or the Crappies, depending on how you want to look at it. No, God bless them. All love to our fellow brothers and sisters that do music in whatever genre they choose. But so yeah, he sang in that group, and I came along and I started singing. Like, man, I was really small, 4 or 5. Singing in front of crowds and playing drums and doing all that. And so in the early 90s, when he kind of started to settle down and he became a pastor and got off the road, that's kind of when my musical journey started to kind of grow a bit. Because growing up, growing up in the South and growing up in the church, it was a very conservative type of deal. And kind of hardcore religious in a religious sense, where I wasn't really allowed to listen to, quote, secular music. So at that time, in the religious sense, I wasn't really allowed to listen to secular music and worldly music, if you will. And so basically my brother, who I'm really close with, and he kind of showed me the ropes. Like there's this movie, Almost Famous. I don't know if you've seen that wonderful film, but in that film, one of the characters leaves all these records. Zooey Deschanel's character leaves all these records under her bed for her brother to check out. Her brother was much younger, and in there was Led Zeppelin and all these Pink Floyd and all these great, the Beatles and the Stones, all these great records. And that's kind of what happened with me. My brother showed me all the music that I wasn't allowed to listen to, basically. And that kind of opened my mind to music beyond just the church. So that was really kind of influential turning point in my life. Like he turned me on to hip hop, De La Soul, and Tribe Called Quest, and Black Sheep, and I mean, you name it, Gangstar, all that stuff. And then from there, that progressed. And I remember listening to my first Beatles record and being like, wow, You know, it was like, you know, like hearing it for the first, like I felt like I was hearing it then for the first time, like people heard them for the first time in the 60s. And that was every genre, really. When I heard Stevie Wonder and, you know, all those things, I was like, wow, well, I've been living under a rock. So anyway, after finding out and listening to all those different, you know, artists, I could totally see the correlation between gospel, you know, and that influence. So it was interesting marrying the genres from growing up and doing the gospel stuff and then listening to the other, you know, the rock and roll and R&B and pop stuff and going, oh, okay, I can see where this kind of all comes from, you know.
Yeah, I can definitely hear that. It's all about evolution. And so when we talk about your solo stuff, you also evolved and were part of the Royal Band, which released several recordings between 2012 and 2019. You worked with Adam McDougall from Circles Around the Sun on the last album.
Yes.
How's it working with a group versus being, you know, Peter Daly as a solo musician?
It's an interesting, being a band is a very interesting situation. It was great. You know, I feel like for me, you know, I've always sang by myself. So when I did the Royal Band record, I thought, okay, this will be fun to include, you know, different people and see how this whole works. And basically our process, how it worked was we had a rehearsal space, our rehearsal bunker, the Royal Bunker, if you will, over in Eagle Rock area. And we would get together with the producer, Adam, who you mentioned, and me and Adam would get together every day. The year that we started recording the songs, we'd get together, and him and I would run through songs. I would open my notebook of songs and show him, you know, we would, from about, say 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., him and I would go through songs and flush them out. And then the band would show up at like 7. And then we would basically go, okay, these are the songs we're going to learn tonight. And we did that for a few months. And then after a few months of that, we figured out, okay, these are the songs we want to focus on recording, and we just went from there. So it was a very fun time. Honestly, I've been around in the business for a while and toured and done all kind of cool things. But doing the Royal Band record with Adam and Darius and Mike, Matthias and Jeff Trastek, and then being able to work with the people that we worked with on the record, one of the best times of my life, no question. You know.
Yeah, they seem like really great people, and some of them I've met, and hopefully you guys will still do more work in the future. So going back to Pigeon John, he was on the Bright Lights remix. You started touring and working with Pigeon John in 2004 as his musical director, and you toured with him around North America and Europe. You opened for Mike Patton and Peeping Tom of Montreal, Who, Pretty Lights, Brandy Carlisle, Atmosphere, Weens, Leader Kenny, NERD, and a bunch of other artists. How was it kind of sharing the bill and playing shows with all of these fantastic acts?
You know, it was fun. And I know that's not the best description, but it's, you know, I feel like, you know, let me get into it more. That's the answer to everything. Just, it was fun. Like, wow, that guy's real boring. Like, his answers are real. No, it was great. Like, you know, I feel like whenever you're a part of, or you're doing music and it starts to take off and there's some excitement and the ball gets rolling a bit and these opportunities happen, you're so in the moment that it's kind of hard to think about, like, oh, wow, we're doing a show with NERD, or, you know, it kind of doesn't, it kind of seems surreal because I feel like you live in your own little bubble, you know, like, these are the songs we've been doing. This is the show we're doing. We've been doing this show for a year now or whatever, and now things are starting to pop and more people are listening. So we're taking the show, but now instead of performing in front of 300 people, we're performing in front of 10,000 people, you know, or like, so it's just, you know, that obviously dynamic changed, but it was really a lot of fun. Really learned a lot, you know, like really learned a lot about bigger production, you know, in you know, in touring, and just how the whole system and how that whole world works. But it was a really awesome time. I remember when our first big tour was with Matis Yahoo, who at the time had this album called Live at Stubbs, which did really well for him, Stubbs in Austin. And he had done, that album did really well, and we got this tour, and it was our first big, big tour with an act that had done really well. And, Matisyahu was a Hasidic, Jewish artist, and, his fan base, kind of reminded me of the days of being in the gospel music scene where you would play youth groups. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all, but it reminded me of that, where we would go to the show and it was like a lot of kids wearing yarmulkes, and, it was kind of interesting. So it kind of reminded me of, playing the church scene, as a younger dude. But we would go out and there'd be all these people with, were rocking the yarmulkes and all excited to see Yahoo. And then here we are. And anyone who knows Pigeon John or his music, he could be a bit quirky and great entertainer. And these people, I remember the first show was in Baltimore, and we go out, and every show on this tour was sold out. And these are big venues, thousands of people every night. And the first show we open up, and we play our first song, and we go through our whole intro. That's a very entertaining intro and very ha-ha, And at the end of it, just crickets, just the crowd just looking at us like, who are these crazy dudes here? Bring Matisyahu out. We don't want, But then, as the tour kind of went on, Matisyahu and John would do a song in the set, and basically Matisyahu gave his seal of approval, like, John's cool. And then after that, all the shows were, lit, as the kids, I believe that's another word the kids like to use, lit. Shows were lit after that, but it was fun. It was really, really a great, another time of my life that some of the best times of my life, touring with John and getting to play those big shows.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I definitely believe that. It's like, if it's not fun, why do it? Because there's so much that people don't know and see behind the scenes to get to that point, and touring can be very grueling too. So I think,
yeah. And that's, and I try to, I work with a bunch of young artists and do some artist developing, as you do as well. And I try to, I feel like, for me, I'm old school in the sense where I believe if you want a career in music, my advice is always play shows. Play shows. Because, now with how people get songs placed in TV and film, if you get a song placed, that's a quick ride. You can make some good money right away. But I feel like for artists to have longevity and have really a lifestyle, a career in music. I think sometimes kids and people getting into music don't think of it as a job because it's so fun, but thinking it more of as a lifestyle, if you can embrace that thought, I feel like you have more longevity. And to me, going out, playing shows, building a fan base, that is so vital to me to the development of an artist. Because, when I played with John for a few years before, things started getting, popular and stuff, we're sleeping in vans, and sleeping on friends' couches and floors in Omaha. And, just playing a grip of shows, 10-hour drives after the show to the next show that we're driving. We play a 45-minute set in Dallas and then go, okay, we got to play, in Kansas. And that's a 12-hour drive or whatever. And, we don't have a bus. We jump in the Tahoe, the Chevy Tahoe. And right after we've played a show and we're hot and sweaty and start driving for 12 hours so that we can make the next show. Like all those things, really helped with our development so that when the big shows came and you're on a tour bus and you have techs setting up your gear, and things are a little bit more comfortable, it's like you really appreciate it. Like, wow, look at how far you get to go. And we're not the Rolling Stones or anything, but you imagine even on that level, like those guys from playing really small shows to playing, them playing the really big stadium shows now. It's like you can see that's why they still do it. They love performing, and there's just something there that's different than the person that gets on a popular show and becomes a hit overnight. Like that kind of thing can be a bit fleeting. So I'm glad that I was able to go through that process and see the really small shows that you get fed pizza, and then the really nice big shows, and you're in Paris and they're feeding you foie gras, and backstage with lemons and lavender and sweet wines and beignets and
oh wow! Well, you really international world traveler. You really have arrived.
It's very becoming Austin Powers almost. Just a man of mystery.
Exactly. Gone are the days of the hot pocket. And,
well, no, those days are back, but that's a whole other story that we'll get into later. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do. I love that crispy, flaky, tender crust.
Oh, ham and cheese. Hey, matter of fact, if any of the people at Hot Pockets are listening to this podcast, ham and cheese, ham and cheese. There you go.
Exactly.
You can have that. Just pay me in a year's worth of ham and cheese Hot Pockets.
Exactly. And they have a great person. I mean, your songs have been licensed and used on Netflix, on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, the CW, Travel Channel, networks. And so how has licensing helped promote you as a content creator?
That is a good question. It helps. With the having your songs online and streaming. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get the old records from my first two albums from 2007 to 2009 streaming, because back then streaming really wasn't what it is today. And with songs being placed, and people being able to Shazam a song and hear a song, it helps more people listen to your tunes, know about you. And I'll tell you, it's been a interesting, fun journey seeing and hearing songs on TV shows or like programs like on Netflix and things like that. With the Royal Band, we had some songs that were used on some programs on Netflix and didn't even know that they were on those Netflix shows, and some people hit me up on social media and said, hey, we heard, the Royal Band stuff on a couple of these shows that we watch. And we're like, oh, wow, that's crazy, And then you go and you start seeing and people streaming the music in other countries. And it's like, oh, wow, that's so cool. So it definitely helps with getting those songs to just more people, So it's been great. And hopefully there'll be more of that in 2021 with the new stuff. With the new albums that I'm just finished and the new Royal Band stuff that we're working on. So yeah, it's been great.
So on the new record, you're currently working to release it in 2021. You'll probably have a single come out this year.
Yes.
You have guest artists. You have Pigeon John. You have Crumb. You have Illa J, and obviously more people working on the record. What does having these guest artists add to the vibe of this album versus your other album?
Well, with this album, I have kind of a sweet bond with like the hip hop market and people in hip hop and just hip hop music. My first group that I played in when I was a young kid was my brother's hip hop group called Harmonics, and that was in the Christian rap scene. And that's how I met Pigeon John, and through that, touring with Pigeon John, who is kind of crossover of hip hop and pop and indie and all that, touring with a bunch of, hip hop people and all that. So I just love hip hop. And when I was started working on this new record that's will come out next year, a lot of the stuff I approached this record a lot differently. Like with the Royal Band was a little bit more of a pop rock kind of thing, more rock and roll kind of home base, if you will, musically. And with this stuff, it's a little bit more pop, I guess pop for me, and a little less bandy. It's not a band record. It's just, me playing a bunch of instruments and having some friends playing some songs. So as these songs started to come together and grow, I just would hear like, man, this would be really dope if, Crumb rapped on this. Crumb was in Harmonics with me and my brother back in the early 2000s also. And he's making really great records, still in Dallas. And DJ he was working with called DJ Sean P, who's a good friend of mine. I thought, man, it'd be great to get him to do some scratching on some stuff, you know. And then that, you know, snowballed into Illa J, who's a buddy of mine. And I thought, oh man, it'd be great to get John Yancey on a song, and then of course Pigeon John. And so just as these songs just started to kind of come together, certain songs it just felt right. So as that kind of process went through, it was like, okay, we have a few features on this. And just last week, another really talented dude that I like, who I've loved and wanted to work with for years. His name is Jay Beats. He was in LA Symphony with Pigeon John. He's going to be on one of the songs. So I was just really excited to share this new album with everyone. I hope people like it, you know. But I think it's going to be grand. So we'll see. You know.
Grand. That sounds very English.
Very grand.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about listening to the Beatles and Paul McCartney. I know is one of your musical influences. How does that shape your overall writing and approach to the music?
Well, I think for me, with Paul, you know, for just my outlook, coming from a rock and roll band and then all the different genres that he's made records in and people he's worked with, like Stevie Wonder, and, you know, Chet Atkins, and I mean Michael Jackson, and you can go through the gamut. And from him, I just learned, I guess, and if this is even a thing, and this is just my outlook, kind of balanced songwriting in the sense of, you know, being all things to all people kind of deal, not being pigeonholed by just one style, like, you know, like, well, I'm only rock and roll, or, you know, I'm only hip hop, or I'm only you know, folk. Well, I feel like listening to McCartney kind of helped me feel a little bit more spread out musically and more eager to try things that weren't just one type of genre. Because like with Paul, you can listen to like Ebony and Ivory, which is a, you know, kind of a quirky, poppy kind of early 80s kind of tune, and then you can listen to Live and Let Die, you know, more rock and roll kind of thing. And so I was like, oh, that's so cool that this dude lives in a few different worlds. And so for me, that I've always tried to emulate that outlook, I guess you could say, musically. You know, like I like listening to I would hope that people that listen to the new record, you know, can go, oh, wow, you know, this is kind of hip-hop vibe, you know, where they listen to some of the Royal Band stuff and it's more rock and roll vibe. So I feel like all that from Paul, you know, like I said, try to emulate that ideology of, you know, embracing various genres and just understanding who you are as an artist, just writing and letting it be what it is, you know, not just, I'm going to write the song, and if it comes out, you know, soulful or more R&B, that's just what it is, you know. Let it dictate itself versus, well, I got to write a song because the radio is this, and you know, like I try not to get caught up in that aspect. So learned a lot from Paul. And the other cool thing I'll just throw in is on the Royal Band record, we worked with Brian Ray, Brian Ray's been playing bass and guitar for Paul for, oh man, I think like 20 years now in his band. And Brian was also Etta James's musical director prior to that, since the 70s. And so it was really cool to work with Brian on the Royal Band stuff and just get to kind of pick his brain and kind of get he's just an incredible artist, and he makes some great music, and obviously he plays with Paul and has played with other people, but it was great to kind of work with someone so close to someone like Paul and just someone so seasoned in the business and just a great artist, and kind of get that mojo to rub off. So it was great. Shout out to Brian Ray. God bless you, bro. Love you, man.
Oh, it's good. Always good to give shout outs and to thank the people that have helped you along the way. So then for my final question, Peter, what do you want your musical legacy to be? How do you want Peter Daly to be remembered in the musical canon?
Wow, that's a good question, Cliff. Thank you. I wish you would have sent me all these questions yesterday so I could have had my girlfriend write the responses.
No, I want them to be.
No. I'm just
feel
kidding.
like if you drop some profanity, I think it's interesting. I grew up very Christian and sheltered, and we didn't get to celebrate Halloween, so I didn't wear Spider-Man or anything like that because that was the devil's birthday. And we used to put we used to put a sign up. There was basically like a no smoking sign with a jack-o'-lantern inside that said, "We don't celebrate Halloween. This door is covered by the blood of Jesus." And we would turn off all our lights and sit in the house, and I wasn't allowed to go to school or eat any of the candy. And so now, this week, I have been watching literally all 30 seasons of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror to make up for it. But I digress. But now I want your true, honest answers.
No, of course. Of course. No. We have to be truthful and honest. Honestly, I just would hope that whenever I'm gone from this earth and the music, my career is done, and if I were to not make any more music ever again, I would hope people would listen to the music and go, you know what, he was a good songwriter. He sang about what he was passionate about, what he believed in. And I would hope that people would find the music that I make somewhat hopeful, whatever it is that I make, I would hope that, like I said, people would get something out of it where they feel like they could inspire them to be a better human being and to love one another maybe a little bit more, and to maybe think about their neighbor a little bit more. So I would just hope that the impact for the music and just me as a human, that people would be inspired to just love one another and just be better people. Because that's really, at the end of the day, I feel like, growing up in the Christian world and the gospel world, and obviously becoming an adult and all that, to me, the best way for people to know that you are a person of faith, or whether you're not a person of faith, just a good person, is by, what you do. Talk is cheap, and granted, we're musicians and we write, so people have to go off our words, but marrying that with, just inspiring people to, just to be better humans and to love one another, especially in such a crazy time. We've been living in such a interesting world for a while, but it seems, lately escalating with people, turning on people and being, very violent, and just, people hurting other human beings and killing people, innocent people, and the innocence. It's just, it's a lot of whack stuff happening, and I would hope that whatever music I make, people are inspired to not be that way, and to love one another and to embrace everybody, no matter what their skin color is, no matter what kind of person, no matter the type of person they date, or whatever God they pray to, I would hope that people would be inspired to just to love one another and want to make this place a little bit better. So, I
agree. We're definitely living in some post-COVID, apocalyptic, end of days. Maybe the Galileans have a song about it.
Well, they might.
We're doing it when they were winning that Grammy back in the 70s. But, when people call you up and they say, hey, we heard your song on Netflix, is your first thought, am I getting paid for this? Like, where did they find my
I was like, oh, shoot, are they smoking some drugs? Because, A, if they are, let me have some. And if B, no. I mean, yeah, when I hear, hey, I've heard your song, on this, I think, man, I want to be a star, don't I?
Yeah.
I want to get paid. But no, I mean, I think, it's awesome to have stuff out there. But yeah, of course, you want people to play your music that have permission. You don't want people to play and use your music on shows and stuff without permission. So that's never a good thing. So
yes. So speaking of Quincy Jones, as you were kind of mentioning him wanting to be a star, doing We Are the World, I just watched a David Foster I think it's On the Record documentary, and apparently, I did not know this, there was a Canadian version of We Are the World type thing, a song called Tears Are Not Enough. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not, but funny you should say that. My new song is called Tears Are Not Enough.
Oh.
And no. I've never heard that. I actually just started watching the David Foster documentary, but I haven't got through it. I
am not normally surprised, and David Foster, funny enough, when I was graduating from Berkeley, he was our commencement speaker, so I have a picture of my graduation funny hat and everything with David Foster.
Did he charge you to take that photo?
Yes, he did, and he definitely did. Okay, good. He put our vice president on blast. Our vice president at the time was Gary Burton, who is an Grammy Award-winning vibraphonist. And he was like, Gary, how many Grammys do you have? 5? He was like, yeah, I only have 14. It's just like, he just totally shut that guy down.
Wow.
for no reason. I heard he's kind of a D in that way, but
well, hey, you know,
I've heard a ton of music, and I know a lot of trivia, and I'm not normally that surprised where it's like Weird the World was huge, and I literally. Maybe it only got into Canada, but I never heard the song. You should look it up. Tears Are Not Enough. Northern Lights. It's exactly shot the same. It's a video of all these people. They have Neil Young and I don't know, Joni Mitchell, a bunch of people. But I was like, how could I have never heard of this track? And it's very similar to Weird the World. It's very interesting. I know Band-Aid did their kind of Do They Know It's Christmas at All kind of thing, and I was similar, but I had never, and that was England, I think, but I had never heard of Tears Are Not Enough, so maybe that will inspire you.
Now, is David Foster Canadian?
Yes, I didn't know that either.
See, I didn't know that either. I thought he was from Pacoima, but, you know.
He lived in L.A. for, like you, for a long time. So.
Sure, yeah.
Now he's got a little young piece, you know, he's on his third wife. His fourth wife hasn't been born.
Hey. You know, hey, you know, God is good, you know.
Well, I mean, if he keeps getting younger, I don't see why not.
I mean, you know, I don't know. You know, like I'll say this: I learned from the great Gordon Sumner, or as we like to call him by his stage name, Sting. A gentleman will walk, but never run. So.
Well, you know, I like to. I'm not nickel slick, but I'll make the penny change. when you got a 50, you can trade it in for 225. That's the kind of long division I kind of like to hear about.
Oh my God! I'll tell you what, I've never been good at math, so that pretty much encompasses why things are the way that they are.
Definitely. I agree. Well, I think if we could just leave it, you can give us a little more sample of that Hot Pockets jingle. The people at Hot Pockets, if you're listening out for Peter Daly, that new album coming out in 2021. You could have a ham and cheese.
Ham and cheese, ham and cheese. Won't you give me some ham and cheese? Yeah. There you go. They can have that. That'll be $25,000. Just for that little piece. That's it.
But only in Hot Pocket coupons that you can
only
use.
In Hot Pocket coupons that you can use at Kroger, Piggly Wiggly, or Ralph. But that's it. If you don't have those in your town, you're not getting the ham and cheese Hot Pot for free.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Piggly Wiggly, Waffle House. I haven't been to those southern neighborhoods. You know, I always tip the pregnant waitress at Christmas time because, you know, she really needs it at the Waffle House or the checker at the Piggly Wiggly because she's still working. So I think that's how we support during this time.
Well, even more so during COVID and people having to work these jobs and be around people. And, man, what a crazy time. I really hope that we in our country get things together a bit more, you know, start caring for each other a little bit more, a lot more, not a little bit more, a lot more would be great, you know.
Yeah, and maybe you'll be commissioned to bring a lot of remote musicians together to redo this wonderful "Tears Are Not Enough" David Foster classic.
You might be onto something there, Cliff. You might need to get that going.
Yeah, we may need to collaborate. Maybe we'll mix them all up. Band-Aid, Tears Are Not Enough, We Are Not Enough, We Are the
just
World.
one big salsa of mixed vegetables.
Exactly. Well, I think that we're definitely going to experience a sexual renaissance as they create a vaccine for COVID. Most likely, they will have eradicated most STDs by then as well. And so I think it's going to be an exciting time come 2021 when your album comes out. It's going to be a lot of babies made to that new album.
Hey, I can only hope that I can inspire the making of babies.
Exactly. And the way I do it, you don't make babies that way. But you just practice.
Hey, you know what they say, practice makes perfect.
Yeah. It does. But no, very exciting to be able to have that deep dive into your illustrious career, and very excited about this new album. Does it have a title?
Yes, calling it Trouble Down.
Trouble Down. I like
Trouble
it.
Down.
You are the Peter Daly on social, correct?
Yeah, on Instagram it's Peter Daly, PeterDaily. My website it's peter-daily.com. And I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm on all those things, Spotify, Apple Music, Napster. I don't even know if Napster's around, but if it is, I'm on. It is.
I think it was purchased by Rhapsody. I think it still exists in some way.
Well, then I'm on there.
And MySpace and Friendster.
MySpace and Foursquare and all those,
Craigslist.
AOL and...
The offender registry.
No. DoorDash, Postmates. All those things.
That's exciting. No, I think in this age, there's no better time. I know some artists are like, I don't feel like self-promoting or putting out music, but we need content. We need hope. We need something to look forward to, and I think you have a captive audience, and we're going to be captive for quite a while. So I think, getting singles out there, teasing the album, and then we'll be definitely looking forward. I mean, it'll be 2021 before we know it. It's going to blink, and then there we are.
Yeah, I mean, we're right there. We're almost there. So, but yeah, all that stuff is online. The Royal Band stuff is also re-released. All that stuff's on Spotify, Apple Music. So if you're out there, if you want to check it out, Royal Band, listen to all that stuff. It's on Spotify, Peter Daly. Find it all. Find it all and listen to it all.
Excellent. Well, we'll be looking out for all that stuff, and we'll certainly be talking to you again soon. So thank you, Peter, for being on the Deeper Grooves podcast, season 2. Very, very excited to get it out to the listening audience. And we will circle back to you with links once it's out so that you can hear it, and we'll tag you in all of our social media posts.
Thank you very much. Peace and love.
You're very welcome, sir. Peace and love. Talk to you soon.
Peace and love. Peace.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to Deeper Grooves, Musicians on Music, hosted by Cliff Beach and sponsored by California Soul Music record label. We had so much fun talking with my good friend Peter Daly about his upcoming album in 2021, as well as his re-released 9th Street Sessions album. We'd like to thank our engineer Tim Hall and 1192 Studios for mixing and mastering this recording. If you like this and you want to hear more, you can check us out online at www.californiasoulmusic.com/Deeper Grooves. Until then, have fun. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.